zero against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
Yo, welcome to another episode of Simply Bitcoin Live, your number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution. Cover breaking news, culture, matic warfare. We will be your guide through the separation of money and state. So many things happened yesterday. Election interference, but it's interesting, right? They're attacking Nayib Bukele. They're attacking the government of El Salvador. Mind you, this is a government. Nayib Bukele has a 90% approval rating. He is the most popular president in the Americas. But that doesn't stop some people in the U.S. government to send these letters saying that basically Nayib Bukele is somehow a threat to democracy. I think they're scared of what Nayib Bukele is doing over there. I think it makes them look bad. And I think that's really what it's about. Also, Biden declares a federal emergency because of Bitcoin miners, because Bitcoin miners are using too much energy. I'll get to it. Pierre Richard covered the topic. Marty Bent wrote an incredible article. So we're going to get to all that today. It's going to be a great show. And we also have a very special announcement. Simply Bitcoin's new flagship sponsor. It's an honor. It's a really humble and honor to say that it's the Bitcoin Well. They are a publicly traded company established in 2013, and they just recently went live in all 50 states. Now, what's awesome about the Bitcoin Well is that they have self-custody by default, and that really aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos, which is the separation of money and state. So really excited about today's show. And of course, I have my legendary co-host and the founder and CEO of Bitcoin Well, Adam Ryan, to talk about self-custody by default, because you know, that's interesting. That's an interesting way to tackle a very difficult problem, right? So how you doing, Adam?
Yeah, man, I'm good. I'm stoked. Looking forward to working with you guys, but I think more than you guys, the Simply Bitcoin community, man. This is, we're going to shape the way that this self-custody platform is built, and looking forward to building.
100%. Another thing also, guys, is because this platform, because Bitcoin Well just migrated to the US, they want to hear your feedback. They want you to get involved, right? So there's any questions or concerns you guys have about the platform, drop it in the comments or send Adam a DM. I warned him that his DMs are going to get flooded. So help us build it. Help us build it together as a community. What is the ideal Bitcoin platform that you guys would like to see? What is it? What is it that you have in mind? Let us know. And, Adam and the Bitcoin Well crew will help manifest that into reality. But what I'm so stoked about is the self-custody by default. I think I told you the story, Adam, right? I met with my parents. My parents have been Bitcoiners with me since 2016. You know, their stuff is in cold storage. It's not moving. But one of the things I realized, every time I meet with them is I function as tech support. Seriously, I'm literally tech support. And I realize I'm their stuff is in cold storage, but if anything, if anything happens to me, they're screwed. We really need to push this self-custody aspect. We really need to push this this education. I think the way that you do that is by self-custody by default, because that essentially becomes like a forcing function. It makes people learn personal responsibility, and makes people learn, okay, I have to write down 12, 24 words, properly secure my seed words, get myself a hardware wallet. It makes them do that, right? And I think that people need to do that. Listen, if you could take care of a child, if you can cook a steak, you could take Bitcoin into self-custody. You
can drive a car.
Dude,
if you know a telephone number, you can self-custody.
That's literally my argument. I was on Ben's show over a year ago, and I referred it back to the fact that humans are pretty good at just generally living. We figured out how to not defecate in the streets. We figured out how to turn on light switches and get dressed in the morning. Surely we can figure out how to secure the most important and best asset this planet has ever seen. And I think it's important. But honestly, it starts with what you said, the education behind it. And it starts with people understanding that it's not just something that we can throw to a newcomer or no coiner and say, figure it out. It starts with the community building in and understanding that teaching people how to self-custody is often the most important step in their Bitcoin journey. It's not getting them onto the Bitcoin journey, it's getting them onto the right Bitcoin journey. And it's self-custody all the way.
100%, 100%. Another thing also, a little bit about Bitcoin. Well, you guys were established in 2013. You guys have been around the block. You guys have been here a minute, man. Very well established.
Yeah, we started with Bitcoin ATMs. Like the origin story is hilarious. It's just completely, bootstrapped from passion. Bitcoin ATMs for me was the fastest way to get into this industry. We grew up a little network of Bitcoin ATMs in Western Canada, expanded out to Eastern Canada. And then last year or I guess 2022 in Canada, we launched a fully non-custodial Bitcoin platform up here in Canada. We're the fastest and safest platform in Canada. And then, as of 36 hours ago, we're live across 50 states in the USA, and stoked to bring that same energy, that same non-custodial principles behind our mission, which is just to enable independence. We want people to be independent. We want to create sovereign individuals and help people be sovereign in their Bitcoin journey. So super stoked, man.
100%. And I think the signal there really is the non-custodial aspect, because we say this all the time, right, guys? The revolution, if enough people take self-custody, we win, and there's absolutely nothing they can do about it. Right? The revolution is self-custody, and the fact that it's self-custody by default, there is no option. Again, it creates this forcing function, but it's a good forcing function because it makes people learn, right? Remember, guys, not your keys, not your cheese. All right,
wait. Before we move, can we just reframe Klaus Schwab, the meme, you will own nothing and be happy? No, guys, you will self-custody Bitcoin and be happy.
You'll own Bitcoin and self-custody and be happy. There we go. That's the meme. Anyways, guys, it's going to be an incredible show. Let's jump straight into the numbers. We have a lot to talk about today. Let's check it out. Here we go.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. All right, guys, I also made it incredibly easy for you guys. You can scan the QR code on your screen right now. It'll take you directly to the Stamp Seed website where you can use promo code simply get 15% off. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 42,985 sats per dollar, 2,326, block height 828,408, blocks to halving 11,592, halving estimate April 20th, 2024, total Lightning Network capacity 4,937 Bitcoin, capacity value $212 million US dollars, realized monetary inflation 1.74%, the market capitalization of Bitcoin $845 billion, Bitcoin versus gold market cap 6.14%. In the grand scheme of things, Bitcoin is still baby. Anyways, I was telling you guys about, this crazy political atmosphere, and that's really what I want to address. This is nuts. This is projection, in my opinion. Here is a U.S. representative, Mrs. Omar, and she said this yesterday, and she already got community noted, but she said, I led members of Congress in sending a letter to Secretary Blinken urging actions on threats to democracy in El Salvador. The State Department must review its relationship with El Salvador and defend democratic values. The Salvadorian people deserve free and fair elections without fear of repression. And the community note says the president of El Salvador democratically won the elections in 2019. And then it goes on to say his party obtained democratically a majority in the legislative assembly. The third thing, it says a president can be reelected in El Salvador if in the 6 months prior to taking office, he was not in charge. Okay, so let's go through some of the comments because I think the comments really address everything. So first, Stacey Herbert. Stacey Herbert is part of the Bitcoin office down in El Salvador. Her and Max Kaiser are doing Satoshi's work. And she says, how exactly do you define democracy? The will of the people is all that matters. It is their inalienable right to self-determination. The people of El Salvador support President Bukele and do not want to return to the plunder, mayhem, and murder of the previous era. Dylan Leclerc says, you need to go back. Now, I'm a bit of a political junkie. And ladies and gentlemen, when they say democracy, what they actually mean is collectivism. When they say democracy, they mean communism. That's not what they don't actually mean democracy. If you look at it from that lens, it all starts to make sense. And you won't be able to unsee it now that I pointed it out, by the way. Here is Walker America. It says the democratic urge to interfere in foreign elections, right? Here's some of the letter. It's pretty long, so I don't know if I'm going to read all of it, but it goes on to say, Dear Secretary Blinken, we are writing to express our significant concerns regarding democratic backsliding and an increase in reports of human rights violations in El Salvador. These concerns are especially pressing with elections planned for early next month, in which the incumbent President Nayib Bukele is running for an unconstitutional second term. Okay, so right, I talked about this idea of projection. So let's actually look at the data. Let's actually look at the numbers. This is Nayib Bukele's approval polls. They're all in the 90s. The lowest one isn't even in the 70s. It's in the low 80s, right? Now let's compare that with the President of the United States, the current administration. 38% approval rating. Now, I wonder why they have such a problem with El Salvador. I mean, I think Nayib Bukele perfectly addressed it here. The video is in Spanish. It has subtitles. I will translate it as it goes. So here's Nayib Bukele.
¿De dónde le nació?
Let me do it at 1 times the speed because I'm going to translate.
¿De dónde le nació ese amor repentino por El Salvador?
Where did they get this sudden love for El
Hace poco no
Salvador?
sabían a dónde quedaba en el mapa.
Up until recently, they couldn't even find it on the map.
De repente, en estos 3 años han surgido todas las preocupaciones.
All of a sudden, these last 3 years, they've all grown concerned.
¿Y antes dónde estaban?
Where were they before?
¿Dónde estaban cuando estos partidos de la esquina reclutaban niños y los obligaban a matar?
Where were they when the parties in the corner recruited children and forced them to kill?
Ahí están. Arena, el FMLN.
The previous
Reclutaban
parties.
niños para mandarlos a matar.
They recruited children to go and kill. We're giving them computers and laptops.
Nosotros les damos computadoras y laptops. Ellos los reclutaban para mandarlos a matar. ¿A dónde estaban? El Salvador es un país libre, soberano,
El Salvador is a free and sovereign country.
independiente.
An
Tomamos
independent
nuestras
country.
propias decisiones.
We make our own decisions.
El mundo entero.
Let that be clear to the world over.
Queremos tener buenas relaciones con
We
otros
want to
países.
have good relations with
Queremos
other
ser
countries.
aliados,
We want to be
amigos,
allies and friends,
socios,
partners,
pero de verdad,
but truly
amigos,
friends,
aliados,
allies,
socios,
partners,
pero no colonia.
but not a colony. Oh God. Yeah, look, I think it boils down to this. And just to kind of give a little bit of a backstory, ladies and gentlemen, because look, I'm from Latin America. I'm from Venezuela. I find it extremely racist and insulting when, you know, the US, one of the most powerful countries in the world, is essentially lecturing this small Central American nation which suffered 30 years of civil war, and they elected a president that brought down the murder rate to the point that El Salvador is safer than some US cities. The guy's incredibly popular, which is like the definition of democracy, right? And they're attacking. And what I really think it's all about is I think it's projection. Here's Lena Seish, and she created a meme, and Nayib Bukele just with the dagger. I think the United States should have free and fair elections, and I'll get to that in a second, right? But here's the meme, like authoritarian, millennial dictator, democratic backsliding. Nayib Bukele grabs a mirror and points it right back. And now I'm going to get into the projection aspect of it. Remember Senator Bob Mendez who, you know, was accusing El Salvador for accusing Nayib Bukele of corruption. Then he was discovered that he was accepting gold bars as bribes. Remember the fact that whatever your political beliefs are, this is just a fact that currently in the United States, the leading presidential opponent for the opposing party is currently being prosecuted in multiple states. There's been a state that even actually took him off the ballot. So I find it, whatever you feel about, you know, Trump or Biden, that's just a fact, right? So however you feel about democracy and being lectured about democracy, I don't think the US has exactly the best place to talk from, right? And I think this has nothing to do with democracy because they didn't even care about El Salvador before the Bitcoin law. They didn't care about the homicide rate, the murders. I knew about them, but they didn't care about that. The moment that El Salvador made Bitcoin legal tender, the moment that a politician started doing the things that he was democratically elected to do, was when all of a sudden El Salvador started popping up on the map. And you know what that tells me? Is that Nayib Bukele and El Salvador is over the target. And when you're over the target, that is when flack is the heaviest. Just like Javier Milei. The media attacked him like crazy. They called him a fascist. They called him a dictator. You heard that speech that he made in Davos. It was a historical speech. Governments no longer need to control the means of production when they can just print money instead. And that is what this is really about, is that they're losing their control on the truth and they're freaking out. And when Nayib Bukele shows to the rest of the world is that there is another way. And not only is there another way, that way happens to be better too. And that makes a lot of people look like fools. And that's what it's about. That's what it's always been about. So this whole thing where it's like this dude is a threat to democracy. You know what I think is a threat to democracy? Trying to interfere in foreign elections because you don't like the politician in charge. I think that's a bigger threat to democracy. So, ladies and gentlemen, this means we're winning. But it also has me a little bit worried because how long until, El Salvador needs some freedom, if you guys understand the Iraq war reference. So anyways, I want to get Adam's take on this and then Opti.
Yeah, man. Separation of money and state. That's what has to happen. I mean, we watched the separation of church and state a couple centuries ago, and that was a net benefit for society when there's that much centralization of power inside of people who are only incentivized and only able to benefit by literally pounding and diminishing their people. Something has to change. And you're right. The power comes from the money. That's why Bitcoin is the answer. I saw a comment, someone saying this has nothing to do with Bitcoin. This has everything to do with Bitcoin, because if you remove the money from the political equation, politics dies. And it truly becomes a message for the people, by the people, with someone in charge set to lead it. I don't think it's a surprise that these kind of third world countries, these countries that are not well off, are flocking to Bitcoin. I mean, time and time again. I just saw last week there was an African Bitcoin conference, and they don't even have energy infrastructure over in Africa, and these people are flocking in droves to Bitcoin, understanding the value proposition that sound money can bring to these communities where the government is either corrupt or is not keen on helping them. And so it has everything to do with Bitcoin. It has everything to do with removing the power from the state, because to your point, Nico, when the government can print money, they can print power. And that's just physics. Like that's when you have something that resembles value, but is not backed by value, you have short-term power. And that's all these politicians care about, is short-term power. I mean, they live and thrive in this 4-year voting cycle. It's brutal. And I think it has everything to do with Bitcoin, has everything to do with us, the people, owning and controlling our own Bitcoin.
100%. And I think that you hit the nail on the head. They have a problem with people controlling their own destiny. And I think that's really what it comes down to. And of course, they're going to use everything in their power. And we've seen this theme repeat itself over and over again. Bitcoin, that's the next thing that's coming, by the way. Bitcoin's a threat to democracy. No, you've seen this over and over again. Money laundering, terrorism, like basically anything that sticks, right? Nayib Bukele is a dictator. He's a threat to democracy. But what I've come to realize is that, and I coined this term a couple weeks ago, and I've stopped saying it, but I should start saying it again, which is the idea of the iron law of central banker and politician projection. They project onto us what it is they are guilty of themselves. And I really think it just boils down to that. So anytime you see, these representatives, these people attacking El Salvador, what are their approval ratings? What have they done? I know what Nayib Bukele has done. You know how hard it is to get 90% approval rating as a politician? I was taking a look at some television coming out of Chile, and they were going through the polls. The other political candidates, if you add all their polling data together, they don't even amount to 10% of the vote. That's how popular this guy is in El Salvador. You don't become that popular unless you're doing good by your people. So they can accuse El Salvador of human rights violations. They could accuse El Salvador of everything they want, but they don't mention democracy, because democracy literally means the will of the people, and the will of the people is clear. They like this guy's policies, full stop. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on all this, brother?
Yeah, well, when I saw this tweet, I was like kind of surprised. I'm like, what does she even care about El Salvador? Like, why is she tweeting about El Salvador? I read the letter and was like, it's like you said, the projection here is very strong. And it just goes to show that they'll use anything to push their political favor. And it's absolutely incredible that anyone in America cares what El Salvador is doing. Again, I did do a little, not deep dive, like a very quick dive on, I don't even know how to say her name, Ilhan Omar's approval rating. And I think very favorably, it's at like 11%. Like that doesn't even compare to Nayib Bukele's 90%. Like, if we're talking about approval ratings and who, the citizens want in their positions, like I don't think she has, a platform to stand on. Like most people in her jurisdiction don't even like her. And she's out here projecting onto Nayib Bukele about, this is a danger to democracy. And, right now as I'm talking, remember, I think it was last year or 2 years ago when we saw that clip from like 40 different news stations around the world saying this is a danger to democracy, and they're all saying the exact same thing. This is just another line of that story being played out. And again, like, do we forget that we live in allegedly a constitutional republic? It's not even a democracy, and yet they always run out like, this is a danger to our democracy. It's just absolute projection, and it's absolutely incredible that America, I'm a proud American, and it's just crazy that we still view ourselves as like the world's police. And here we are, we're out here protecting everyone when in their company, I fully believe in the sovereignty of nations. Like, I don't think as an American, we have any right to tell any other country what they should or should not be doing. I think we should worry about what's going on back home. We have enough problems here in America, let alone worrying about what a tiny country in Latin America is doing with a very high approval rating. Like, we should be focusing on ourselves, and yet our politicians continue to view everyone else instead of looking themselves in the mirror. And again, like Adam was saying, this all has to go back to fiat money. This does relate to Bitcoin. And as much as I view and am in the same camp that like politics is irrelevant to Bitcoin, it's very clear that they are making steps towards trying to ban and outlaw Bitcoin in every jurisdiction. Like, Bitcoin is political because it is so non-political, because it is apolitical. Bitcoin is the most political money in the world because they can't stop it. They can't control it. And that's why we are seeing what we're going to be covering in the news, that they're coming after Bitcoin any way possible. So like, yeah, I know Bitcoiners like to say like, politics doesn't matter to Bitcoin. I totally agree. But because Bitcoin is apolitical, it is a political matter. Everything is politics. When you talk to a politician, they will come after Bitcoin. They are actively coming after Bitcoin. And, as much as I'm not like a politician, I would much rather have Bitcoin politicians than people being anti-Bitcoin in political positions. Like, it's very clear here, guys, you know, and it's just incredible that we're even talking about El Salvador. Like, they're a tiny, tiny country. And now we're worried about what they're doing. Like, they're a threat to our democracy here in America.
Dude,
it's crazy.
They are essentially making politicians look bad, and essentially that's really what it's about. It has nothing to do with democracy. I was reading one of the quotes by, I think this is the ambassador for the El Salvadorian ambassador for the United States, and her response to Elon, I don't know how to, Opti, do you know
I think
how to
it's
pronounce
Ilhan.
I'm sorry, guys. Ilhan Omar, Representative Omar, her response was savage. She says, please don't get involved and interfere in the election of a sovereign country. Like, that's a very strong statement. The U.S. has nothing to stand on here, okay? Look at throughout U.S. history, you know, what was the United Fruit, what is it? United Fruit Company, Opti, or something like that. Like, basically, the U.S. does not necessarily have the best track record in Latin America and throughout the world in dictating other people's foreign affairs. So anyways, guys, it's going to be interesting. This is just getting started. This is the separation of money and state after all. All right, guys, no more delay. Let's jump straight into the news. We have a lot to talk about. And then we're going to talk about the culture, which we're going to focus on the Bitcoin well. We have Adam, and we have so many questions for him. This is the beginning of a beautiful partnership. We're extremely excited for it. All right, guys, no more delay. Let's hit the news. Here we go. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor. Have you ever wanted to get into Bitcoin mining and don't know where to start? That's why I want to introduce you to Scott's Build a Mine Bootcamp. He will show you how to build your own Bitcoin mine, how to get the project funded, how to get your facility filled with miners as quickly as possible. With a little luck, and by putting all his techniques and strategies to work that he's developed mining Bitcoin for the last 6 years, you could be mining 5 million Satoshis per day or 0.05 Bitcoin in less than 3 months. On the free webinar, he will give you a high-level roadmap that will help you get on your way to building, owning, and operating your own Bitcoin mining farm. Begin your mining journey today. Register for the free webinar now. Click the link in the description of the video below or contact Scott directly on Telegram using his handle @OfferedScott and learn how to mine those precious, precious Satoshis.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air-gapped security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more. All right, guys. I also want to give a very special shout out to Scott's Build a Mine Bootcamp because they are launching, the webinar is tomorrow. So guys, definitely sign up. It's free. All you got to do is you got to put your email in there. I made it incredibly easy for you guys. Scan the QR code on your screen. And of course, get yourself a Passport hardware wallet. If it's not your keys, it's not your cheese. Hardware wallets make that incredibly easy. And now with the Bitcoin well, it's self-custody by default. Now you don't have an option. Now you gotta learn. You gotta learn self-custody at this point. So get yourself a hardware wallet. We recommend our sponsor, Passport Foundations. And if you want to learn how to build a Bitcoin mine, guys, check out Scott's Build a Mine Bootcamp. The webinar is tomorrow, so sign up today. It's free. Scan the QR code or check the link in the video description. All right, guys. So what I want to talk about today, another attack. This is crazy. crazy. And mind you, like we did this, it was total coincidence. We did not time this. We did not plan this. But for anyone who didn't watch yesterday's episode, we literally read you this article by Marty Bent. Incredible work he's doing over at TFTC.io. But basically it says the EU is attacking proof of work. Well, it's not only the EU, now it's the US as well, which is absolutely crazy. So let's get through some of the Twitter posts, and then we'll end up at Marty's article covering the recent attack by the Biden administration, which we've been saying for many months now, that they do not like the Bitcoin industry. They don't like this thing. They're fans of central bank digital currency. So here is Steve Mesa. He says the government uses reporting and information requests as weapons. This is how they protect the incumbents, by declaring emergency. Pierre Richard, this isn't just some random Bitcoiner. He is the VP of research at Riot Platforms. It's a publicly traded Bitcoin mining company. And Pierre Richard has not only a really good reputation, he's been in the industry for a pretty long time. So when Pierre speaks, you listen. Anyways, he says Biden has declared a federal emergency because Bitcoin is winning. I just want to read the highlighted part. As evidence, the price of Bitcoin has increased roughly 50% in the last 3 months, and higher prices incentivizes more crypto mining, Bitcoin mining, by the way, activity, which in turn increases electricity consumption. At the time of this writing, much of the central United States is in the grip of a major cold snap that has resulted in high electricity demand. So so they're for like unreliable energy policy, right? Then they get mad that Bitcoin is winning. They're like, oh, Bitcoin is using too much energy. They don't specify the fact that Bitcoin miners have to use stranded energy. Bitcoin miners have to use isolated energy. If it wasn't isolated, if it wasn't stranded, it wouldn't be economical for Bitcoin miners to use it. They had like, and that's like kind of like a disservice, because it's telling the American public, or telling people that are not informed, that they think that Bitcoin miners just set up shop in the middle of New York City, they plug them in, and everyone's electricity bills go up. No, why would they do that? That's too expensive. They're going to go out of business. So they go towards, there's a dam in the middle of nowhere, right? It has excess electrical capacity. That's perfect for Bitcoin miners. Now, all of a sudden, that excess energy that would have otherwise gone to waste has value. Anyway, so yeah, this is crazy. But I mean, this is another step. A federal emergency declared because Bitcoin is winning. Absolutely hilarious. Here's another comment to one of our tweets. This is by Jerison Martinez. He's a strategy. He works at Volcano Energy, which is El Salvador's Bitcoin initiative. Shout out Max Kaiser for spearheading that. And he goes on to say the U.S. Department of Energy is requesting to collect data to build a standard for Bitcoin mining energy use. They've requested energy handling of the data collection request because public harm is reasonably likely if normal procedures are followed. Further, as evidence, the price of Bitcoin has increased 50% in the last 3 months, and higher Bitcoin prices incentivizes more mining activity. So it's like, listen, give us a giant list of all the Bitcoin miners everywhere. And I just love this graphical art piece by Marty Bent and his newsletter. What do you call this, Opti's newsletter? Post. I don't know what the exact blog. But it's more than a blog. You can't just call this a blog, dude. This is super professional. Look at this, man. This is really well done.
I don't know. Great memetics from Marty Bent.
Great memetics and journalism from Marty Bent. This is incredible. Guys, check out Marty Bent's blog or news publication. Go to TFTC.io. It's incredible. Anyways, the headline is the Biden administration wants to create a registry of Bitcoin miners. It goes on to say earlier today, the Biden administration announced an emergency data collection initiative targeted at Bitcoin mining operations in the U.S. via the U.S. Energy Information Administration, an independent sub-agency of the Department of Energy. It seems that the Biden administration is identifying the electricity usage of the Bitcoin mining industry as an emergency that is threatening grid stability throughout the U.S., as is evidenced by the name of the survey, Proposed Energy Survey Crypto Mining Facilities. Here's the press release and the official filing from the EIA. So we read you some of that already. But he goes on to say, when I read the press release and the filing, my initial thoughts was, quote, interesting. Maybe this will turn out to be a net positive for the industry. The EIA has made some pretty naive assumptions, and the survey should conclude that Bitcoin miners have provided clear benefits to the grid systems that they operate within, especially those who operate in demand response programs that ensure reliable electricity is available to residential consumers during times of peak demand. But after some thought, that initial inclination felt a bit naive. Data from Bitcoin miners participating in demand response programs and others taking care of escape method emissions might be mining off grid using natural gas that would otherwise be flared or stranded and unmaintained has been public for years. There is no need for a forced survey on the industry out of nowhere. That's when I decided to look at the actual survey. Upon review, it proves to me of the more Aurelian things I've seen come out of this administration. And that's saying a lot. If you dig into the information that the EIA is requesting, it looks like as if the EIA is setting out to create hyper-detailed registry of mining operations in the United States, getting as granular as to request specific information about mining fleets and hash rate data. As with any dystopian edict put forth by a government gone mad with perceived power, the survey starts out with an overt threat. Your response is required by law. This report is mandatory under the Federal Energy Administration Act. Not only does it start with a threat, but it requires that all commercial cryptocurrency mining facilities in the United States respond. This is utterly insane. Before we opine on the insanity, let's dive into the information the government is expecting the mining industry to fork over. Miners will be expected to provide information about their companies, where they're domiciled, and the addresses of where the operations are located, as well as a point of contact for the EIA. The companies will also be required to identify whether they're running operations that involve proof of stake or proof of work. They will need to tell daddy government how many mining facilities they operate. After that, they will be expected to disclose the location of their individual operations, including geographic coordinates, the amount of electricity that was consumed at the facility altogether, regardless of whether or not the miner has any control of the electricity that it is not using. From there, they will have to disclose the percentage of the facility's electricity consumption that was used specifically for mining and doxing their electric service provider. Next up, they will have to somehow come up with the average percentage of all the electricity dedicated to Bitcoin mining at different energy suppliers, and again, doxing them. And at last, but certainly not least, miners will be expected to give detailed information about their mining fleets. The EIA wants to know the numbers of ASIC miners are running at individual facilities. The model of those numbers will be determined by cross-referencing the age of the miner with the different model, the amount of energy needed to power these mining machines, the maximum amount of hash rate they produce during the reporting procedure. So I think you guys get the point. Marty did an incredible job summarizing all of this. I think this image of Biden in, like, you know, this Soviet type general uniform is extremely appropriate here. This is dystopian AF. This is crazy. They're forcing people to register their, you know what comes after you register something with the government? They build an extensive list of where that thing is located, where they can find it. You know what comes after that? Seizure. Why else would they want this type? Okay, let me ask you guys something. Video games use more electricity than Bitcoin miners. Toasters use probably more. Washing machines. Do you see them going out in public and saying, please register your washing machines with the US government? This is clearly politically motivated. This has nothing to do with energy consumption. Just how in El Salvador, it has nothing to do with El Salvador being a threat to democracy. What this is really about is that Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining and El Salvador doing its thing is a threat to the status quo. But they cannot overtly say that because it's too obvious. So they're using anything that sticks. This is a clear attack. This is a complete violation of the Fourth Amendment, which is no unreasonable searches and seizures. This is crazy. This is insane, right? And this, like, and of course, and if they get into a pickle, what will this lead to? Seizure and confiscation. All the Bitcoin miners should stand up and should say no to this. This is un-American, and this is insane. What is this? This is a communist country? This is absurdity. Like, I don't have any more comments. Anyways, Adam, what's your take on this, bro? I mean, no, and not to mention, guys, this came the day after the news from Europe came, right? So it looks like this is a global type of event by governments to attack the industry, in my opinion.
Dude, that word, the emergency word that they threw in there a couple times, triggers me so hard. I was just going through, like, recently in Canada. So we all know about the trucker protest that happened, and then our government froze a bunch of bank accounts because of the emergency of the truckers protest and that they couldn't leave the country. It turns out now 2 years later, finally our incredible judicial system gets to it. And it turns out that was illegal. And so it doesn't really matter that it was illegal. There's no penalties. The federal government's going to waste a bunch of money appealing that decision. And at the end of the day, the government chose out there was an emergency that they didn't like, and then confiscated and made it very, very difficult for people to live who were participating in that emergency, and will continue to go on to control people. I think his name was Phil, said it. Confiscation is what happens after registration. I have so many thoughts and so many feelings about how dangerous it is when a government decides that they want to attack something. And that's why it's so important that this sounds a little bit self-serving, get your coins in your hand, buy a passport, like just go and do something that takes the power away from the government to be able to do it. Up, I don't think you can see it, but just hanging right there is the executive president order where they confiscated all the gold in 1933. And somehow miraculously gold prices doubled after they confiscated the gold nearly 100 years ago. That gold was only able to be confiscated because A, people complied, and B, gold was in custody. And so, registration is the first step towards custody. We've seen an attack in the EU, as you guys were talking about the other day, on personal wallets. Like, now they're going after miners. This is 100% fabricated. This is 100% a concerted effort to make people less sovereign. Because when sovereign individuals arise, when sovereign individuals are empowered, they are way harder to control and therefore harder to push a narrative onto. So I think all of that is preposterous. I'm surprised that our government hasn't done that. And I think, like, with an ounce of research, governments should be able to see what we were saying. Like, Bitcoin literally incentivizes miners to find better, cleaner, aka cheaper ways to produce energy. Using stranded gas to mine Bitcoin is an incredible net benefit, no matter what way you look at it. It's a way that you can literally move stranded energy and the value that stranded energy has from point A to point B without infrastructure. You have a free open source piece of infrastructure to move that value across. And it's mind-blowing to me that this kind of propaganda actually works. And I think this is a very key point in history where we see the politicians getting a little bit cocky, and you can see how out of touch they are, where in the past, like up until the internet, up until really even social media, up until 10, 15 years ago, they had 100% control over the narrative. And they continue to think that they have that. They don't realize that we have independent media. They don't realize that we have protocols like Nostr, where free thought is able to be progressed and free thought is able to be mass distributed. And I think that it's important that we all understand the FUD that is happening here, and that we all identify, hey, like, this is not a fact. This is wrong. And here's the steps to prove that this is wrong. I could probably rant forever, and I might start crying soon. So maybe
no, it's good. It's good. Hell yeah, that means you're passionate, bro. I get fucking teary eyed when some shit goes down, dude. So like, yeah, 100%, man, 100%.
It's terrifying, man. I've got so many stories about the EU. We actually tried to expand it into the EU, and the government made it impossible for Bitcoin ATM companies to work. They didn't make it illegal. They just made it impossible to function. This is step one of making it impossible to mine Bitcoin. This is step one of getting all of that energy, all of that hash rate under one centralized control. What are we going to see next? That only the ETF providers are able to mine Bitcoin because it's more democratic, because it's safer for everything. Like, it's preposterous. And you can see the writing on the wall that freedom money is bad for corrupt politics. We have corrupt politics. Now we have freedom money. Let's fight.
100%. 100. Beautifully put. Beautifully put. Opti, what's your take on this? I mean, Opti's gonna go ham. Opti's not surprised.
I was just about to say I'm not surprised at all, and I can't really add too much to what you guys are saying, except for like not being surprised. And Nico, as a Venezuelan, and Marty lays this out great in that article that you guys should go read the whole thing. We do have precedent for this, guys. Like, first they tag and bag your miners, and then they come and confiscate them. And they did this in Venezuela, and I'm not surprised that we're seeing this happen. Of course, like, they're going to use this emergency, energy whatever proposal to make sure that they try to frighten everyone into doxing their literal coordinates. Like, it's absolutely incredible that this is where we are. Of course, I'm kind of with Marty Bent here, where we say, like, is this where we all just have supreme non-compliance to what they're saying? Just throw away these letters in the mail and just never get the letter and never actually report where you are. But I mean, am I surprised? Not at all. It's almost very interesting that they do this in such like a very subtle way, where they're like, yeah, just tell us where everything is. And then, hey, we're here to protect you. We just want to survey what's going on with the energy, with the electricity usage, and then literally tell us everything you have in your business and your land with all your miners. And then, maybe later in a year or two, we're going to come confiscate all your miners, and basically now the state owns all of these miners, and we're doing what's best for the country. And to Adam's point, as much as I would like to believe that by providing them this information, like we could basically turn the tide and in the propaganda and be like, look, this is what's actually going on. I'm just wholly convinced that it doesn't matter what we tell them, whether, we have precedent for this. Like, we have ERCOT in Texas showing and proving that Bitcoin mining improves the electricity grid. We have countless examples of Bitcoin using stranded energy, literally helping small cities and small towns improve their electricity, providing jobs. None of this matters. All they really care about is just doubling down on the climate change FUD and scaring people, and basically saying, moving from, we're going to boil the oceans, to what, Bitcoin uses too much energy, to these Bitcoiners don't care about the environment and we should shut them down. And like Adam said, until people wake up to the propaganda and the FUD, like, they will continue to use these low-hanging fruit excuses for trying to clamp down on Bitcoin. And someone trolled in the chat saying, finally, the US government knows that Bitcoin is going up forever. Like, I love the highlighted portion that Pierre Rochard said. It's like, oh, there's a federal emergency because Bitcoin is winning too hard. Bitcoin went up 50% last year, and oh my God, they're going to bring more miners to the network, and they're going to use all the electricity. And like, we wouldn't be in this position if you guys weren't robbing everyone blind with fiat money. Like, this is the whole reason for Bitcoin. Literally anything you guys do in the federal government or central bankers, like, you are the very reason for Bitcoin's existence in the first place. And we've been saying this for a while, Nico, that we're going to constantly hear them yell and scream and about Bitcoin, about either it's, I don't know at this point what their next excuse is. It's a threat to democracy, I'm sure, is coming down the pipeline.
That's the next. I'm calling it right now. Bitcoin is a threat to democracy. That's
they literally said in that article, Bitcoin is going up too much in price, and now we got to check for environmental issues. It's like, Bitcoin's winning way too hard. We got to stop this.
Yeah, exactly.
People are protecting themselves.
Federal emergency. Bitcoin is winning too hard.
It's winning too hard.
Yeah,
we need to confiscate more property because Bitcoin is winning too hard. Like, this is the very reason for Bitcoin's existence in the first place. So again, to the point, and I say this all the time, and I'm not the first one to say this, but any attempt to ban Bitcoin just proves the very reason why you need Bitcoin in the first place. Bitcoin cannot be stopped. So, hey, if the US wants to shoot themselves in the foot and stop citizens from protecting themselves from outright theft from these politicians, it just goes to show to me why we need Bitcoin in the first place. Like, this should be a signal for everyone to stack more sats. And like, if you're getting scared out of your position because of what's going on at the federal government, central bankers and them, like, you need to study Bitcoin more. This to me is a buy signal, not a sell signal. You should be stacking harder now, especially when, you know, the police of the world is telling you, hey, we want to rob you more. You need to not save in Bitcoin. It's absolutely ludicrous.
100%, 100%. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to the culture. Let's talk about the Bitcoin well. Let's talk about Adam. Let's talk about what we have planned over the next 6 months. I'm incredibly excited, and honestly, I'm honored for this partnership. Adam and I met in Calgary at the Bitcoin Rodeo, and we just hit it off ever since, and really, really excited to talk about this. And we're going to take a different approach to this, guys. We want the community to be involved in this process, in this rollout, because what is being tried to achieve, like what we're trying to achieve, what Simply Bitcoin and what the Bitcoin Well is trying to achieve is a very, very hard feat. It's very, very difficult. We're trying to push Bitcoin by default, right? So and again, not to bash on anybody, whatever, you know, just to make that very clear, right? But Bitcoin by default is difficult because essentially it's like, no, you can't purchase Bitcoin unless you're going to take self-custody of that Bitcoin, right? So it's in my opinion, it's a very noble cause. I think it's a noble cause. I think it's a necessary cause, because this is how we win, ladies and gentlemen. This is how we win the revolution. Just because, you know, you have your Bitcoin in an ETF, look at how they're talking about Bitcoin miners. They're forcing Bitcoin miners to register. Are you trying to tell me that if the US government gets trapped into a corner, you know, they're going to be looking at that and they're going to 6102 it. And I think, Adam, that, you know, plays close to your heart. Like if you have a picture of the 6102 order, you know, in your office, you know, I'm sure that means a lot. That's very symbolic, in my opinion.
Dude, that's literally the mission, is to enable independence. And every single product, every single line of code that goes into this Bitcoin platform is a line of code that is written to further the mission to enable independence. And it's way harder. It is like 9 billion times harder to build a platform where we don't keep people's Bitcoin. But it's what is so important when you're on a mission to enable independence. I'm not interested in giving people price exposure. I'm not interested in giving people paper Bitcoin. I'm not interested either in being tapped on the shoulder by Uncle Sam and saying, yo, give me Opti's Bitcoin. That does not interest me. I want to say, no, I don't have Opti's Bitcoin because we are a self-custody platform. I don't have anyone's Bitcoin. I have 0 customer Bitcoin. If I and we as a company disappeared tomorrow, there would be 0 customer losses, period, ever. And that's the way that it should be. And I think that we collectively as a community should stop tolerating fiat principles being applied to sovereign money. We should look at this from the ground up. What is Bitcoin built for? Independence. What is Bitcoin built for? Freedom of people, freedom of money, self-custody, self-control, the ability to run the numbers, the ability to understand where your value goes. And that's what we need to give. So it's not, Bitcoin is like, I've been in this industry for over a decade now. And that Bitcoin journey, when you have a long Bitcoin journey, it starts with price and it goes into sovereignty. And then it goes into even deeper than sovereignty, which is your entire relationship with the world and with the value that the world creates and the value that you can create in the world. And the protection of that value, you have to be diligent. You have to understand what you're providing to the world, and you have to safeguard that at all costs. 100%. And so we know we're fighting an uphill battle. We know it's harder. We know it's inconvenient to you know, get a public address. In some cases, you can't just we just don't allow you to keep Bitcoin on the platform. It's not what we're about. So
I love it.
When you sign up, literally before you can link a bank account, you put a Bitcoin address in. It's number 1.
Hell yeah. Dude, this is the way. This is the way. Anyway, so we're going to dive deeper into that during the culture. But first, we got to hear a little bit from our sponsors, because they're the ones that keep the lights on. So first, I want to talk about Bitcoin evangelism. This is the tool. This is the book that you need to arm yourself with the knowledge to orange pill the next 10 million people. Bitcoin Evangelism by Brian DeMint is an absolute beast of a resource for orange pilling no coiners and altcoiners alike. This is a book for Bitcoiners who know Bitcoin but have a hard time explaining it to their friends. It's a book for Bitcoiners who are trying to explain Bitcoin only to altcoiners. It's available right now on Amazon. You could scan the QR code on your screen, or you could check the link in the video description. All right, everybody, let's get to the culture to talk about the Bitcoin well.
The Daily Culture.
All right. All right. Also, I want to tell you about our other sponsor, Kaboom Racks. Kaboom Racks. They're the most trusted place to buy, sell, and host mining equipment. You can scan the QR code on your screen right now. It'll take you directly to their Telegram marketplace where you can connect with a member of their sales team. They make purchasing their products easy and transparent. You could also sell your mining equipment with them. You could access their vast network of domestic and international customers when you sell your mining equipment with Kaboom Racks. This is the place that I trust. This is the place that I personally choose to buy and sell my Bitcoin mining ASICs. Check out Kaboom Racks. My voice broke today. All right, everybody. So what's up, Adam? How you doing, man? I am so freaking pumped for this ship. I'm so excited, and you guys just launched in the US. This is perfect timing. You guys decided to expand to and you guys are the first platform in the United States of America to be Bitcoin self-custody by default. That is a big effing statement, in my opinion.
Yeah, man, I'm stoked. And I think, like Tom in the comments here, he's hitting the nail on the head. Boomers who aren't technology savvy enough to self-custody. Yeah, like honestly, this platform is going to be a little bit more difficult for them to use. And we know that. We are building a platform, and it starts with all of, like, everyone watching right now is probably technology savvy enough to figure out how to self-custody Bitcoin, and also knows how important it is to teach the boomers who aren't technology savvy enough to self-custody their Bitcoin. No boomer was technology savvy enough to send an email 10 years ago, or send a text message 10 years ago, or like open up a video chat 10 years ago. And then all of a sudden, that's what they had to do, and they figured it out. And it started with you and I teaching them how to do that. And I think that's part of what we're here for. It's part of what we're asking. We're asking everyone, part of the Simply community, we're asking you guys, like, help us build the best self-custody platform this world has ever seen. Help us truly embody our mission to enable independence and help people buy real Bitcoin, not paper Bitcoin, not Bitcoin exposure, Bitcoin, and Bitcoin only. And, you know, I think an added benefit and why we're so excited to work with you guys is because, like, look at all of, like, we're not shilling bad products during this show here. Like, this is incredible. They are like tier 1 products that I either have personally used or would personally use. And the ethos is just so strong. Bitcoin is not about price exposure. Bitcoin is about value preservation. And I think that everyone can relate to that. And we need to do more.
100%. We do more. And the way that we do that is literally pushing self-custody. And it is, in my opinion, it is going to be the most difficult thing. That's the biggest leap, in my opinion, just based that, and, you know, I told the quick story about my experience with my parents in the beginning of the show. And I literally, like, a light bulb came off in my head. I'm like if we don't, enforcing is a strong word, but if we don't incentivize it, right? If we don't, like, listen, you want to sign up, you got to have a Bitcoin wallet of which you control. And then, Adam, like, to be honest, this is very noble because that hurts your bottom line. Like, to be frank, because it's a lot easier to again, not, love all Bitcoin companies. It's good for all Bitcoin companies to succeed, and friends with all of them, the CEOs, good people. But what I'm trying to say is that, like, in different business models, it's a little bit easier to make money because you're not forcing your customer to take that extra step. So what was your logic behind that? Because it's extremely noble. It definitely pushes the Bitcoin revolution forward. But what was your thinking behind that? Because that's a very strong business decision.
Yeah, it's mission first. Like, the bottom line will come when the mission is fulfilled. This is the right, look at this. Apple does this now. It's hilarious. The thumbs up thing. The mission to enable independence is so important and lines up so well with the properties of Bitcoin that anything less is just high time preference, in my opinion. And I think that the way that we can eventually, like we think a lot about this, obviously, that's our single greatest barrier. Like when you're looking at the flow of where people drop off, it's adding a Bitcoin address. Like that is the single greatest barrier. You can sign up in like 10 seconds. You can verify yourself if you need to in like, I think it's 2.5 minutes is about how long it takes to verify your account. I mean, like the hardest thing for people to do is add a Bitcoin address. And I think that, you know, the way that we could eventually do it is using a third party. I would be very, very, very opposed to people doing that over self-custody. But even still, the broker, the custodian, and the individual should be 3 different entities, 3 completely different entities. Coins need to leave Bitcoin platforms, period, end of story. When you buy Bitcoin, the coin should be on chain, or at least like on the ledger. If you're buying Lightning, coin should be on chain, out of the control of the people who are incentivized to keep and then spend the coins. That's literally how every single Bitcoin exchange has ever collapsed, is because they spent customer Bitcoins. At the very, 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 very least, if we were to say, you know what, the world is not ready for self-custody. I don't think that's the case. If it came to that, we're publicly traded. We need to, you know, be and do right by our shareholders. If it came to that, it will be always through a third party. Bitcoin will never hold customer Bitcoins. We will never have control over customer Bitcoins. Anything less than giving the control directly to the customer is, I think, not right by our mission to enable independence.
Absolutely. No, and I completely agree, man. It has to be that way, because if not, people fall into the convenience trap. So has to be that way. And go ahead.
The convenience trap is probably like for example, Lightning payments. I've been traveling, going to some circular economies. I went to Panajachel at Bitcoin Lake. I was just in Bitcoin Jungle, speaking at the Bitcoin Freedom Festival. Like, that's lots of Lightning. I use a custodial Lightning wallet personally, and maybe you can rip me apart for doing that. I
love Wallet of Satoshi, dude.
It's so sad that they're gone. I feel like this phone that I have is like a little piece of gem because it has the app on it.
Same. I still have the app. It's great.
It's like, remember when Flappy Bird was like on phones, and then the guy took it off? Remember that?
The guy's like, I'm making way too much money. Like, F this, and he just pulls it. Yeah.
And then if you had a phone with Flappy Bird, it was worth like 50 grand or something.
Yeah.
That's gonna happen with the Wallet of Satoshi too. It's so good. It's so convenient. But bingo, like that's the problem. I mean, look at me. I'm a self-custody advocate, Bitcoin entrepreneur of over a decade. I know Bitcoin pretty well. I have myself personally sent tens of thousands of UTXOs. I've got like multiple nodes. I've ran a mining operation. Like, I've been in Bitcoin for a long time, and it's still easier for me, more convenient for me, and still, in my opinion, like not worth my time to put a couple $100 into my own self-custody on Lightning. And so if I'm like that, like, dude, yeah, your 65-year-old grandma is also gonna be like that.
What did I tell you, Opti? I told you, I was like, because we were trying to set up a Lightning thing for the Simply Bitcoin store, and like you know, and of course, my buddy Matt Hill's Start9. By the way, check out Start9, guys. It's an incredible node. And I remember I was, you know, the LND software and then whatever, and then I was just like looking at Opti and our COO Weinikis, and I was like looking, I was just like, guys, this shit fucking sucks. Like, this is terrible.
Yeah,
this is a really bad experience. Like, main chain is figured out, right? Like, it's you know, you download the UI is great, whatever. But this Lightning stuff, like, if you want to self-host it, like, this sucks. And I remember calling BTC Stats, like Ben Perrin, and I was like, dude, like, what the fuck? He's like, yeah, I know, bro. Try Phoenix. And I was like, okay, Phoenix is good. And then, so I was like, okay, let me transfer the Phoenix. But it's expensive. And then there's like a little hack. He's like, Nico, transfer large amounts first so that you don't have to pay a fee for every single one. And I was like, okay, so I'm just going to have like $1,000, you know, on this hot wallet on my phone. So it's like, yeah, there needs to be a solution. It's kind of troubling.
Yeah. The biggest problem with, and maybe we're getting a little bit off topic, but like, even if as a platform we do everything right with Lightning, if the end user doesn't have their incoming routing channels sorted out, the payment will fail. And then our customer success and support just turns into like customers yelling at them because payment failed. And it's like, look, there's nothing we can't do. If you don't have a way to receive the payment we're sending you, and that's where I think main chain works so good, is you can literally send Bitcoin to someone who's like not expecting it. They don't have to make an invoice. And that's where custodians got it right, is by creating this LR or using the LN URL to allow people to actually receive, where the custodian handles the incoming routing. Now, the better solution is for the wallets, the platforms, to actually just act as routing channels and have somebody else actually take custody of the coins. But anyways, it is my firm belief that broker, individual, and custodian, like ideally custodian and individual, are the same, one and the same. Bitcoin gives us the ability to do that for the first time, like since rocks. We are able to self-custody our money. That's incredible. We should take advantage of that. The step towards that might be someone other than the broker, someone other than the person or company selling you Bitcoin, holding your Bitcoin. But guys, if you're watching this right now, it's 2024, you're in Bitcoin already, like just self-custody, just like forge your own keys, be sovereign.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Hey, Nico,
100%.
can I pop in here? Because there's a good question here for Adam. The audience wants to know, how does Bitcoin Well deal with UTXO management, considering it's self-custody by default?
Yeah, we send Bitcoin in batches. And so we've got times of the day where batches go out, money comes in, order gets made, Bitcoin gets purchased, it goes into a batch. Or in Canada, we're working on this in the US right now, but in Canada, what happens is you can pay your own miner fee. So if you want to, like, we've got kind of like similar to mempool. I think we actually use mempool as our guiding metric. But if I look at like mempool's just always open in my browser, like mempool's recommending anywhere from 30 to 50 sats per byte. So if you want your Bitcoin in the next block, and you want us to broadcast, that transaction to the network immediately, then you just pick that setting when you're buying the Bitcoin. So admittedly, that pushes the UTXO management into the individual. UTXO management is going to be so important this cycle, just as, you know, as number go up and as more miners get in and as the block fees get more expensive, it's going to be really, really important to properly manage our UTXOs. And so we're going to be focused a lot on education, lots of blogs, lots of articles, just talking about UTXO management, talking about speaking of all of Satoshi, there's other platforms that do this. I think Blink does this. I'm not sure if Aqua does, but maybe they do. Like, you can just send Bitcoin on chain to the wallet that will then automatically transfer it from main chain into Lightning, and then you're able to stack in Lightning. We pay the batch, we pay the miner fee if you're not in a rush for it. And it's a way for you to get small amounts of Bitcoin. You can still DCA the Bitcoin and just send it to the wallet that transfers into a layer 2 technology. So this is kind of what I mean when I say like this is how we make decisions, is what makes the customer more independent. How do we enable more independence with the customer buying Bitcoin? That's the filter.
Yeah. And I just have some questions for you, Adam. You guys recently rolled out in the US. I don't know, Opti, if you can pull up that tab. You guys rolled out in the United States. So this quick pitch to our audience, right? This is the first time maybe hearing about the Bitcoin Well. Tell them like why they should sign up. What is the experience that they're going to get? Obviously, we recommend it. We recommend guys make a Bitcoin Well account today. Self-custody by default. Just keep that in mind, right? But that's a good thing. So what would you tell our audience, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're super excited to be talking to Bitcoiners. And if you're a Bitcoiner and you want to be a part of shaping the way that self-custody Bitcoin platforms are built, go use the product, buy Bitcoin, buy $20 of Bitcoin. Like, we're not looking to cash in here. And I'm not telling you to go and drain your bank account and buy Bitcoin. I would love to see a community form who can actually help us. We are a small team. We're a team of individuals who are dedicated to the mission of, I keep saying it, enabling independence. And so what does that mean to you? How could this platform be better for your grandma to use? How could this platform make it easy for Uncle Joe, who's at Thanksgiving dinner, who's at Easter dinner, whatever, where he's like, oh yeah, great. Finally a platform that I feel comfortable using and then taking Bitcoin into my self-custody. We're going to be running, that's kind of the mission focused side, but from an actual user perspective side, like we have real questions for people. What's more important? Is it layer 2 support, or is it the ability to sell Bitcoin? What's more important? The ability to, like, in Canada right now, and unfortunately the payment rails in the States are a bit different, and like way more difficult to navigate. But in Canada, you can pay your bills with Bitcoin right there. In the US and in Canada, you can buy gift cards with Bitcoin. And so we're trying to make Bitcoin useful. We want people to feel comfortable holding their wealth in Bitcoin, checking their time preference, lowering their time preference, take your income, put it in Bitcoin, spend what you need to, and stack the rest in freezing cold storage. So definitely,
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, as far as the CTA goes, like, sign up for an account, hit me on Twitter, comment on this video, comment on, Twitter at the Bitcoin Well, like, help us build the best self-custody platform this country's ever seen.
Absolutely.
Love it. Hey, let me jump in here, Nico. Adam, I think a point that we kind of just swept on the rug is that you're in all 50 states. Like, how hard was it to get into all 50 states?
Well, we went live a few months ago in, I think, 38 states. And like, okay, talking about, I tweeted yesterday, the tweet kind of like teasing this partnership was just like how it was just a whirlwind for like 48 hours and how perfect and timed it was. Unbeknownst to us, we got the approval to go ahead and open up the entire country yesterday morning. Like
Wow.
Yesterday morning, we get the, hey, all 50 states are good call. And then like today we're starting, with the best Bitcoin only media publication in the country. So it's like this is so serendipitous, and it's so incredible. We're lucky to have good partners. We're lucky to be able to offer this, and the future from here. Like, this is ground zero right now. This is, launched. You can sign up, add a Bitcoin address, link your bank, and buy Bitcoin. As we build, things that are coming are like layer 2 support, the ability to sell Bitcoin, the ability to DCA with like proper controls and proper UTXO management. This is the stuff that excites us, and building for 50 states is a hell of a lot more exciting than building for 38. And building for 2 countries in both Canada and the US is, this is the mission to enable independence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Guys, check out bitcoinwell.com. Sign up today, share it with your friends and your family. It's important that, you share a platform that is self-custody by default, right? Like, that's the key. That's how we win the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, is more individuals taking back their financial sovereignty by taking self-custody, right? That's the key there. So yeah, man, this is a very noble cause. We're honored to partner with you. There's a comment in the chat. When Europe. I'm sure that's sure you've put some thought into that, Adam.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, look, that's why Bitcoin is so important. Bitcoin is borderless money. So like, the Bitcoin protocol works whether we're in Europe or in Africa or in the US or Canada or wherever. Bitcoin protocol acts and reacts the same. When you have fragmented, centralized, garbage, legacy, fiat financial ecosystems in each different country, like, it just makes it that much harder. I mean, one more reason to just flock to Bitcoin. So yeah, when Europe, let's we're gonna sprint. We're sprinting now. We're gonna dominate North America, but we're not gonna sleep until the entire world is independent.
Absolutely, absolutely, love that, man. Well, Adam, it's been an honor and a pleasure. I'm really, like I said, I'm honored, and I'm super excited about this partnership, pushing the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, self-custody by default, Bitcoin Well, publicly traded company coming out of Canada, established 2013. I'm beyond excited. Opti, any last words?
No, I mean, I'm just hyped. The conversation we had with Adam before, we're all building for Bitcoin to succeed, and couldn't be more hyped to partner with Adam. So this is super awesome. Actually, one last question for Adam. What's the last 2 stats you want to leave with the audience?
Oh man, the last two sats that I want to leave with the audience. I've been working on this thesis lately that like Bitcoin is actually not about price. And so my last two sats, maybe a question to the audience, and I'd love for you guys to like tweet it at Simply or tweet it at me. Like, why is Bitcoin so important? Because it's so much more than like, you know, $47,000 US, $87,000 US. Like, who cares? The money's gonna go down, gonna go up and down forever. There's a million ways to make money. But why is Bitcoin so important to like your grandkids? Why is Bitcoin so important to you for the long run? Oh, I got the horn. Let's go.
I've been trying to give you horns the whole day, but like I'm like, which part do I actually hit the horns at?
I love that. I love that.
Dude, bars, horns, all of it. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. We'll be back tomorrow, but this is a very, very special episode moving forward. The Bitcoin Well is the official flagship partner of Simply Bitcoin moving forward. And the ethos are aligned, right? It's self-custody. Self-custody is the revolution. Adam is the CEO and founder. Adam, thank you so much for joining us on Simply Bitcoin today. Really, really appreciate it, brother.
Pleasure to be here, man. Looking forward to the future.
Likewise, likewise. All right, guys, that was the show. If you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Consider subscribing. And if you feel like we provided you value, consider smashing that like button. Anyways, guys, we love you all. We'll be back tomorrow for the Friday episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. Peace out, everybody.